The first thing I notice is the sound. Not the wind pushing against the concrete. Not the occasional distant shot from the outer streets. It is the low, steady rumble under my boots. The one that means Unit 1 is holding steady at load and the settlement still has power. The big analog frequency needle on the main panel stays pinned at just under 60. The status board glows with that washed-out green I remember from the old days, before the world fell apart, before the dead started walking toward whatever noise and warmth we gave them. The control room still smells the same. Dust, coffee stains in the corners, a faint trace of machine oil that never really leaves the air. Someone taped a crayon drawing to the mimic board months ago. 3 kids standing under a string of yellow squares that are supposed to be houses with lights on. The caption is written in block letters, "Thank you, power people." I sit in the old operator's chair with my boots hooked on the rail, watching the megawatt numbers creep up and down with the demand from the district we feed now. We called it District 7 when the city still mattered. Now it is just the strip, the thin band of surviving blocks that have not burned or been overrun completely. When I bump the load 10 megawatts higher to steady the voltage, the needle responds and the whole building gives that faint, deeper hum. I do not need the monitors to tell me what happens outside the fence when I do that. I already know. Unit 1 holding at 90 megawatts, I say into the desk mic, out of habit more than necessity. The words carry through the plant intercom, into the turbine hall and the switchyard shack, and the makeshift dorms we built in the old training wing. It feels better to talk to someone, even if most people are not listening. Frequency stable, voltage stable. Ignore the flicker in Block C. That is just the old feeder complaining again. Maggie's voice crackles back from a wall speaker, flattened by age and the cheap wire we scrounged. "Copy, Gabe. Food line starts in 20 if you want something that pretends to be stew." And Rowan says, "Tell you the north motion sensors are going crazy again." Of course they are. I reach past the rows of dead annunciator lamps and flip on the external camera feed. The largest screen in the room used to show network data from the regional dispatch office. Now it is split into 4 grainy black and white views of the perimeter. Chain link fence topped with bent razor wire. Concrete walls stained from years of rain and exhaust. And pressed up against all of it, shapes, dozens, maybe more. The dead do not move in a rush anymore. Not around here. Most of the loud ones got themselves shot months ago during the first panic around the plant. What is left is slower, quieter, stubborn. Bodies leaning on the fence, hands caught in the metal, dirty clothes hanging off frames that should not still stand upright. Every time Unit 1 rolls a bit harder under load, I see it in the picture. The small adjustment in the way their heads angle toward the main building. The way more distant figures in the street start drifting closer in uneven steps. They do not stop at the first line either. They keep coming until the front ranks have no room to fall forward anymore. I tap the sensor overlay. Numbers pop up in the corners. North fence, 94 detected. East fence, 61. South gate, 12. West wall, 31. The software was never designed for this. It thinks the dead are stray animals or moving vehicles, and it keeps flagging them in red. I clear the alerts again and rub my eyes, careful not to smear the grit into them. When I first talked everyone into coming here, there were barely 10 infected around the plant. Back then we thought they reacted only to noise. The sirens, the gunshots, the screaming. It made sense. Anything that had a brain left would turn toward that. The plant was silent that first week after the grid went down, and the infected wandered past the fence without any focus, slow and confused. We climbed the wall, watched them from above, and told ourselves we had found a neutral island. Solid concrete, thick doors, buried cable trays, backup diesel tanks, and a river intake that could give us clean water for years if we kept the screens clear. I still have the piece of chalk I used to draw the original layout in the dust for Maggie. Now those same walls are never empty. Every time we push more current through the bus bars, more of the dead drift in from the ruins of the city toward the heat and the low vibration that rolls out from the turbine hall. The night we lit up the strip for the first time, the fences were clear. 2 days later, we had a permanent ring of bodies pressing from every side. I have been logging the numbers for weeks, tracking them against the megawatt output. It is not a perfect line, but there is a pattern. More power, more dead. I log the current counts in the dog-eared notebook next to the main panel. Pen scratches through the old power plant checklist headings that no one cares about anymore. In another life, I used those same forms to answer to an office downtown, to people who checked efficiency charts and fuel contracts. Now the questions are different. How long before the fence foundation gives out under the constant pressure? How long before some section of rusted bar breaks? How long before one clever infected finds the intake tunnel? The door to the control room opens with its usual stiff metal groan. Rowan steps in, wiping rain from her jacket. She used to work plant security before the outbreak. Back then, she worried about copper thieves and bored teenagers. Now she counts ammunition and watches the perimeter for humans and the dead both. Her rifle hangs on a strap at her side, empty chamber, magazine in, but not seated all the way. Old habit from the city guard days. "North fence again," she says without greeting. Her eyes go straight to the monitors. Sensors keep tripping. I dialed them down, but Maggie wants a real count. Said you were already staring at them. 94 on the north, I answer. Give or take a few blocked by the camera angle. It is worse at dusk. They stack tighter then. Whole crowd leaning into the mesh, like they are waiting for the shift change bell. I stop myself right after the word. I almost said like. I push that thought away and focus on the control board. Rowan studies the closest monitor. One infected presses its face through the diamonds of the chain link. The skin around the eyes is dry and cracked. The eyes themselves still track movement, slow but deliberate. Every time the unit ramps up a little, its head tilts. She watches that for a long moment, jaw tight. You remember when there were only 3 at that corner? I remember when there were none, I say. First day here, you walked the inside of the fence with me and told me it felt too quiet. Guess you were right, she mutters. Maggie wants you in the break room after you hand the board to Irving. She is calling a meeting. Something about the hospital on the hill. The hospital. The old regional center that still has a few floors, holding on 4 blocks up the line. We ran power there for 2 hours last week so they could sterilize instruments and run a single operating room. It took half the reserve fuel just to spin the turbine up from cold. I still have the log entry. I also remember how the infected count jumped afterward. 24 more at the east wall by morning. Irving is in the turbine hall, I say. Tell him to drag himself back up here and not to touch anything on the way. Rowan smirks at that, a brief expression that does not reach her eyes, and leaves. The door thumps closed. The plant hums. Outside the fence, the dead shift and lean and stare. I watch one of them stumble, get pinned by the others, and disappear from view. A minute later, something new pushes into the gap. The numbers on the overlay do not drop. Irving finally shows up 10 minutes later, wiping sweat with a rag that started out white years ago. He was a janitor here before, never an operator, but he listens and learns, and he has not made any mistake that killed anyone yet. In this world, that is high praise. I walk him through the current readings, what to watch for, when to shout into the plant radio for help. Keep Unit 1 right where it is, I tell him. No adventurous load changes without clearing it with me or Maggie. If the frequency starts to drift, or you hear anything that does not sound familiar, get on the radio and yell. And do not touch the black rotary switches on the bottom row. Those still talk to breakers outside this building, and we do not fully trust the wiring. He nods, a little too fast. And if the alarms go off? If any real alarm goes off, you will know, I say. The old board still has a few surprises, but the big ones work. Just remember the shutdown sequence we drilled. Fuel off, valves closed, breakers open. If you panic and shut in the wrong order, you risk damaging the turbine, and then we all sit in the dark for a long time. He swallows and nods again. I clap his shoulder once and step away from the board. I do not say the part inside my head, or we all die in the middle of an emergency shutdown because the dead found a new way in. The break room still has the same brown tile and humming old vending machines, though nothing inside them works. We stripped them months ago. Now the machines hold tools and spare fuses behind their dirty plastic fronts. Someone taped a handwritten schedule on one of them, listing water filter duty, fence inspection, vegetable garden shifts up on the old cooling tower roofs. The table in the center is covered with maps, coil-bound notebooks, and a scattering of chipped mugs. Maggie stands at the head of the table with one hand on a radio and the other on a dog-eared city map. She was a city council clerk before the outbreak. She used to deal with permits and budgets. Now she coordinates food, fuel, patrols, and fights over bunk space. Her hair is pulled back into a rough knot, streaked with more gray than when I met her 5 months ago. Luis is beside her, still wearing the stained hospital scrub top he had on the day we pulled him out of the emergency entrance with a swarm at his heels. A few others lean against the walls, listening. "Gabe," Maggie says as I step in. "Good. We need you for this." She taps the radio. Static hisses for a second. Then a voice cuts through. Thin, distant, with that edge of exhaustion I recognize from too many of these calls. "This is Dr. Shu at Memorial," the voice says. "We are holding at 32 patients, 5 critical. We have fuel for our generator for maybe another 12 hours. If we ration, we lost 2 infants overnight because we could not run the incubators long enough. You said there was a chance of a more stable feed. I am calling to check if that chance is real or if we should start sending people down to you on foot." The room goes still. We all know what a walk through those streets looks like now, especially for the injured. Maggie holds down the transmit button. "We are working on it, Doctor. We still have 1 unit running. We can give you more hours, but we have to be careful how much load we take. The grid out there is damaged. We do not want a fault blowing out the plant end." I step up beside her and watch her eyes. She glances at me, then back at the map. Someone drew a thick black line from the plant to the hospital on the hill, following the old feeder route. "How many hours do you need minimum?" she asks. 3 hours today, Sue replies after a pause. "To run the operating room, sterilizers, and basic lights. Maybe 2 more tomorrow. We can stagger procedures and keep the ward dark between runs. But we cannot keep doing the short bursts. It takes us 10 minutes to bring systems up and down. The generator is coughing. We are not sure how much longer it will hold." Maggie releases the button and looks at me. The others follow her gaze. The decision is not technically mine, but everyone knows the turbine better than anyone else does. They want to hear me say it is possible, or that it is not. "We can give them 3 hours," Luis says quietly. Those are lives we know about. Real people. Kids. I am not arguing the lives, I answer. I am telling you the cost does not end at diesel and wear on the bearings. Every time we feed more power out and keep it steady, more of the dead show up. You saw the north fence numbers. Maggie folds her arms. You have said that a few times now. I trust your logs, Gabe, but we are already ringed by them. What is 10 more or 10 less at this point? It is not 10 more, I say. Night after the last hospital run, Rowan counted 30 extra at the east wall alone. 2 days later, that number had doubled. And watch how they move. It is not just sound. Something about the vibration, the temperature, I do not know. When the unit is at cold idle, we get a few. When we push real current, they drift in from farther out. Every hour we hold this thing at full load is an invitation painted on the sky. Invitation or not, the hospital needs help, Luis says. His voice stays even, but his hands move restlessly against the table. If we cut them off, those people die in the dark. We are not the only ones in this city. Maggie looks between us, then rests her palm on the radio again. 3 hours today, she says. Then we reassess. We double patrols at the fence. Rowan will shift more guards north and east. We can spare the people. We have a full crew this week. The gardens are between planting cycles. I want to argue more, but I can see the line she is walking. Power means light, water pumps, radios. It means surgery and sterilization. It means the strip does not have to go back to candles and hand pumps yet. And yet all of it sits on top of a magnet we barely understand. I nod once, slow. All right, then we do it right. I will bring Unit 2 up from preservation. We run both units at half load instead of one at full. Spread the stress, keep the vibration lower on each. Maybe that buys us a little less attention. Can you do that with the fuel we have? She asks. If we pull from the rail tankers we parked inside the south wall, yes. It will cut into the winter reserve. I point at the map without really seeing it. In my head, I am already walking the startup checklist, imagining the trip down to the turbine hall, the sound of that second rotor winding up after months of silence. We will also need an inspection at the intake screens. More flow will pull more debris. I do not want any surprise trips. Maggie nods. You have it. You and Rowan pick a team. H-Sue gets her 3 hours. After that, we watch the walls and we talk again. No one makes any long-term promises. She presses the transmit button. Memorial, this is the plant. We can give you 3 continuous hours today in about 2 hours. I suggest you get everyone ready. This is not a luxury. It is a one-time window for now. Sue's answer is simple and tired. Understood. Thank you. We will be ready. 2 hours later, I stand in the turbine hall, helmet strap under my chin and ear protection pressed tight. The hall is a concrete cavern with 2 long metal hulks running down its center. Unit 1, closer to me, is alive. Its casing vibrates with a steady rhythm I can feel through my gloves when I rest a hand on it. The generator at its end spins inside its housing, sending current out through fat cables to the switchyard, and from there to the strip. Unit 2 at the far end has been cold since the outbreak. Dust clings to its casing. A few birds made a nest in the overhead crane rails before we sealed the upper vents. Rowan stands near the door with 2 others, rifles slung but ready. Her eyes keep drifting to the big hall windows set high in the wall. We boarded over most of them months ago, but thin beams of gray daylight still slip in through gaps. You sure this is a good idea? She asks during a lull as I check the lube oil pumps. No, I answer honestly. It is a necessary idea. That is different. I flip the local switches one by one, listening to the pumps engage. Oil begins moving. A faint change in tone runs through the idle unit. If anything sounds wrong, we abort. I am not going to risk a blade failure because we rushed. I open the fuel block valves under my hand. We are running on reclaimed gas and a little liquid backup. Enough for this. The old control system wakes in stages, blinking through its checks. Irving's voice comes through my handheld radio from the control room. Ready for rolling on your mark, Gabe. Grid is stable. Memorial is standing by. Copy, I answer, bringing Unit 2 to turning gear. The rotor begins a slow, controlled spin, an old maintenance trick to even out temperatures. Numbers scroll on the portable panel we wired up when the original screen died. When everything looks steady, I close the last interlock. All right, let us wake you up. As Unit 2 accelerates, the hall takes on a different tone. Unit 1's deep, steady sound gets a partner, higher pitched at first, then slowly matching as the new rotor reaches synchronous speed. The floor plates buzz more under my boots. The overhead lights tremble slightly in their fixtures. I glance up at the high windows. Dust drops from an old beam in a thin curtain. Outside, the infected feel it. I know it before Rowan's radio call, but her voice confirms it. North and east fences both picking up new movement, she reports from her guard at the door. Numbers climbing fast. They are coming in from the side streets in 2s and 3s. Keep everyone off the fence, I say. No heroics. Let the wire and concrete do their job. I close the breaker on Unit 2 with a firm push of the handle. Somewhere in the switchyard, a set of contacts slams together. The new generator starts feeding the grid. Irving whoops faintly through the handheld. Load sharing engaged, both units holding at 50 megawatts. Memorial reports power received. Lights on. There is a part of me that wants to be proud. This plant was supposed to be my career, and now it is the spine of what little remains of a city. I should feel some satisfaction bringing another chunk of dead steel back to life for a purpose. Instead, I keep watching the dust flicker down from the rafters and think of the fence monitors. More power, more vibration, more heat in the condenser outfall that empties into the river. More signals in a world that has lost most of them. 3 hours leak past in a steady routine. I walk between the units, listen, check gauges with my flashlight, touch casings with the back of my hand to judge temperature. Rowan comes and goes with updates from the walls. The infected numbers peak about an hour in, then hold. Hundreds now at the perimeter. The north fence camera shows a packed mass of bodies pressing in. The mesh bowed inward at places. The bottom rail flexes, grinding against the concrete curb each time a few more push forward. Maggie's voice finally comes over the plant radio. Memorial reports they are done for today. They shut down their equipment. Hsu says to tell you to hold as long as you can, but she understands if we have to drop them. Tell her we are cutting back to 1 unit, I answer. I am not going to keep both at load longer than we agreed. Irving, start decreasing Unit 2 to 0. We will offload and disconnect in 5 minutes. The rundown is uneventful. Unit 2 spins back down to idle, then to a stop. The hall quiets a little, though Unit 1 still fills it with that familiar bass tone. I walk out to the north parapet with Rowan to see the result with my own eyes. The sight is worse up close. The fence looks ready to surrender. The metal posts lean toward the plant, their bases shifting in cracked concrete. The bodies piled against them are packed tight. Some are still standing, arms wedged through the mesh, fingers hooked in the wire. Others are trapped at angles, legs twisted under them. held upright only by the mass around them. The smell is heavy and sour, carried more by memory than wind at this point. Movement ripples across the crowd as new arrivals press in at the edges, trying to find space that does not exist. Eyes turn toward the building, unfocused but intent. One of the closer infected lifts its head toward the turbine hall wall and opens its mouth in a sound we cannot hear through the glass and concrete. Rowan watches without speaking. Her hands rest on the parapet edge, knuckles pale. When she finally talks, her voice is flat. "We cannot hold this forever. If that fence goes, we do not have enough ammunition to clear this many before they get to the doors. We do not have enough people to replace the fence either," I say. "Not with real footings and anchors. That steel was set when the plant was built. We do not have the equipment to redo it." I trace the line of the wall with my eyes, checking for spots where the mesh bows more than the others. "We have to reduce the draw somehow, or break the pattern." "How?" she asks. "We stop giving the strip power. They starve and freeze. We cut the hospital off. Those patients die. The only way to truly cut the signal is to kill the plant. And then we are just another handful of people in a dead building with no reason to exist." "We use the plant differently," I say, though the details are not formed yet. Shorter runs, more unpredictable cycles, lower load when we can. Maybe we fix some of the local generators in the strip so they are not so dependent on the grid. Spread the sound around instead of making one big beacon. Rowan snorts once. "You always wanted better distribution, even before the world ended." She pushes off the parapet. "Maggie will want to hear your ideas. After dinner. I need to triple the watch for tonight. If that wind picks up, those posts may shift more." We walk back through the reinforced corridor, past the steel doors we welded after the second week here. On the way down the stairwell, I pause at the landing that leads to the lower maintenance tunnels. A draft moves through the gap under the door. Warmer than it should be. The condenser outfall runs under that corridor, carrying hot water from the plant to the river. We never considered it a path for anything to come in. The design had screens, bar grates, long runs of concrete. Animals stayed out. At least that is how it worked when the world functioned on normal rules. "Rowan," I say, stopping with my hand on the chipped paint of the lower door. "We never checked the outfall screens after we started running both units. Only the intake. I want to look down there tomorrow." She frowns. "You think they're in the water now?" "I do not know," I admit. "I know the outfall water is warm. I know anything with a working nervous system can sense temperature changes. We already saw that one dead man in the canal last month drifting toward the culvert. I want to make sure we are not heating a path directly into our basement." She thinks about that for a moment, then nods. "We will take a team, daylight only. I am not crawling around in tunnels with a flashlight and that crowd above us at night." We do not make it down there the next day. The storm hits before dawn. The first sign is the way the rain hammers the roof panels above the dorm wing. It drowns out the usual plant noise, a constant roar that makes people raise their voices without noticing. By the time I reach the control room for morning checks, the external cameras show sheets of water slanting across the yards, turning gravel to streams and the low spots near the fence into shallow brown ponds. The infected outside do not seek shelter. They press into the fence under the onslaught, some slipping on the slick concrete, grabbing blindly at the mesh to stay upright. The sensor overlay numbers are higher than yesterday. Lightning flashes somewhere beyond the city skyline, a white blot on the gray monitor view. Half a second later, the control room lights blink. The frequency needle shivers, then steadies. Old reflex makes me glance up at the surge protectors and the main breaker status. The plant rides through it. For now. Bad day for overhead lines, I mutter. The radial feeders out to the strip still run on poles in places. Storms were always their weak point even when crews could go out in bucket trucks. Now, a single branch dropping onto a conductor means a fault that may never get cleared, or a line lying live in the street until it burns out. Maggie shows up at the control room door with a poncho dripping on the floor. "We have leaks in the dorm wing and the storage warehouse," she says without preamble. "I shifted people away from the worst of it." "How is the grid?" "Holding," I say. "For now. I do not like the look of the east feeder, though." I point at the schematic, where a tiny orange indicator flickers near the symbol for a sectionalizer. That one has been chattering all morning. Something out there is close to faulting, if it has not done so already. "We cannot send anyone out in this," she says. "The streets are half rivers, and the infected are packed even closer to the walls today. Rowan says they barely have room to patrol behind the guardrails." "Then we wait and hope the line clears on its own or the protection does its job," I say. "If it trips, we shed load, push power through the other feeders, and hope the strip does not lose entire blocks at once. Not much else we can do." The plant hums through mid-morning. Each thunderclap rattles the window glass. Somewhere on the north side, I hear a metallic groan through the concrete. Not from the turbines, but from something larger. I flick on the north yard camera. Wind drives the rain almost horizontal. The fence bows under the combined pressure of steel and dead bodies. At one corner, a post tilts another few degrees toward the plant with every gust. The concrete footer around it has cracked in a jagged line. Water swirls there in a muddy pool. "Rowan," I call over the radio. "Northwest corner fence. You seeing that?" "Yeah," she answers, breathless. Background noise says she is out in the storm. We braced it with 2 steel beams yesterday, but the ground under the footer is washing out. Bodies are pressed 3 deep on that stretch now. We can try to pull some of them away with hooks, but it is slow, and we are short on dry footing. If one of my people slips out there, no one is dragging them back through that mess. "Do not risk it," I say immediately. "If the fence goes, fall back to the inner barrier and the firing points. We will cut power if we have to and go into full defense mode." She does not like that answer, but she does not argue. Understood. Just before noon, the east feeder finally loses the fight. The main panel alarms shriek with a sound that goes straight through my ears and into my spine. The line indicator turns red. Voltage on that leg collapses. Somewhere out there, a tree or a pole finally gave up. "East feeder faulted," I say aloud for whoever hears. "Shedding load. Strips 4 and 5 are dark now." I swing the control knobs with practiced motions, transferring as much demand as possible to the remaining feeders without tripping the units. The frequency needle staggers, then recovers. Unit 1 groans through its casing, audible even from the control room. I push more fuel through for a minute, then ease it back, keeping the numbers balanced. The plant holds, but the storm has one more trick. There is a knock of thunder so close it feels inside the building. The lights spike and dim. A small puff of ozone rolls through the air vents. One of the old relay cabinets near the back wall crackles and goes dark. "Great," I mutter. I rush over, check the panel. A char mark spreads out from a single old relay that must have taken a surge. Its associated indicator label reads, "Lower Service Tunnel Pump Control." I swear under my breath, remembering the warm draft at the stair door. "Gabe?" Maggie asks behind me. "What did we lose?" "Control circuit for the lower tunnel pumps," I say. "The pumps themselves might still run if we jump them locally, but we just lost remote control and status. And if the storm is dumping this much water, that tunnel is probably filling right now." "Tunnel goes where?" she asks, even though I know she remembers the map well enough. "From the lower service level to the outfall and the intake," I say. "It is supposed to stay dry except for occasional seepage. We use it for maintenance. There are sump pumps to keep the water down. If those are offline, the tunnel is probably half full already. Maybe more." Maggie's eyes narrow. "You wanted to check that area yesterday?" "Yes," I say. "I still do. But I'm not excited about pulling manhole covers in a flood in the middle of a siege." Before she can answer, Rowan's voice slams into the radio channel, harsh and loud. "Northwest corner fence is going. Repeat, the corner is failing. Post 47 just snapped at the base. The whole run is bowing in. We have bodies spilling through the gap near the ground where the concrete broke. Inner guards to position now. We need everyone with a firearm or a spear there yesterday." We do not have spears, not in the traditional sense. We have lengths of rebar with sharpened ends, halberd-style tools the maintenance crew welded together for pushing the dead off the fence when ammunition was too precious. Sunflower seeds in a world of concrete. I picture them scraping across wet skulls as the storm hammers down and the fence gives up on years of service. "Gabe, can we cut power to anything that is not critical?" Maggie asks in the same breath as she grabs her own rifle from the rack by the door. "Less vibration, less draw." I glance at the board. Hospital feed, strip central feed, inner plant service. If I drop the strip feeders completely, we take all their lights and pumps, and they will not know why. If I keep the plant running for us only, that is a smaller signal, but still a signal. If I shut the unit down entirely, we lose everything, including our own internal power, and it will take hours to come back up later. Those are the options. She hesitates only a second. "Keep the unit running for us. Cut the strip if you have to. If we die here, the grid dies with us anyway." She shoulders her rifle and runs for the stairs. I pull the strip breakers with a grim twist. Somewhere out there, apartments and shops drop into darkness in the middle of the day. Their occupants will see the storm and assume the worst. Maybe they are right. Maybe this is the day the system we built starts coming apart. I hand the main board to Irving again with a series of rapid instructions. "Hold Unit 1 at minimum stable load. Watch the frequency. Do not try to follow every bump. If she starts to wander, call me. I need to check the lower tunnel before it floods the wrong way." His eyes go wide. "You are going down there now?" If the pumps are off and the outfall is full of debris, water backs up into the tunnel, I say. If the tunnel fills, the pressure can blow lighter doors and grates. If anything has come in from the river, that is the path it will use. I would rather meet whatever is down there before it reaches the basement electrical room. I grab a flashlight, a crowbar, and a radio, then head down the stairwell toward the service door I paused at yesterday. The air gets warmer the lower I go, heavy with moisture and the metallic smell of damp concrete. The door itself has a rubber gasket around it, meant to keep occasional seepage out. Today there is a thin line of water leaking under it, running down the step in a steady sheet. I wedge the crowbar under the handle, brace my foot, and haul. The seal breaks with a wet sucking noise and the door shudders open enough for me to shine the light through the gap. The tunnel beyond slopes gently down. The first 10 steps are visible, concrete slick with a shallow layer of water. After that, the beam hits a moving surface. The tunnel is at least waist-deep full beyond that point. Brown water fills it from wall to wall, sloshing gently with each distant tremor of the plant and the storm. It is not just water. Pieces of debris float in it. Leaves from the riverbank, bits of wood, something that might be fabric. The outfall screens are clearly clogged. That alone is a problem. If the condenser cannot dump heat, the plant will overpressure and trip. We will lose Unit 1 whether we choose to or not. I lean in a little more, aiming the flashlight at the surface. The beam reflects off eyes. 4 pale shapes float just under the surface near the bend in the tunnel. Faces, bloated but recognizably human. Open mouths, hair drifting in the current. For a second, I think they are just corpses caught on some obstruction, carried in from the river. Then one of the hands twitches. Fingers close slowly, then relax. The head turns in the water, not from the current, but from some faint control. The eyes roll toward the light, then slowly forward toward the source of vibration deeper in the plant. I slam the door shut on instinct and throw the latch. The impact sends a small wave of water up from the gap, splashing my boots. I stand there, breathing through my teeth, listening. On the other side of the door, something bumps against the concrete. Not loud, but deliberate. Then again. Then again. The rhythm matches nothing mechanical in the plant. "Control, this is Gabe," I say into the radio. My voice comes out harsher than I intend. "Do not use the lower tunnel. Repeat, the lower service tunnel is compromised. We have infected in the water near the outfall." Irving answers, nervous. "Compromised how?" "Floating in it, and still moving," I say. "If the water rises any higher, they are going to be in arm's reach of this door handle. If enough pressure builds behind the door, the latch may not hold. I need someone from maintenance to bring me extra bracing, steel bars, anything. And we need to think about shutting the unit down before the condenser overpressures. If we cannot clear that outfall, we cannot keep running at this heat load." Maggie breaks into the channel, breathless. "We are a little busy topside, Gabe. Fence corner partially collapsed. We have infected between the outer fence and the inner barricade. My people are in a real fight. If we shut the unit down now, we lose the internal lights and some security systems. Are you sure the condenser is that close to the limit?" I glance at the nearest pressure gauge repeater on the wall. The needle is higher than I would like, but not in the red yet. Not yet, but it is going that way. We are on borrowed time until those screens clear, and they will not clear without manual work, which we cannot safely do as long as the tunnel is full of moving corpses. So we are trapped between burning the plant up and letting the dead walk straight into our basement, she says. A crash of gunfire pops faintly through the radio from her end. Shouted voices. "All right, hold what you can. Brace that door. We will try to push the breach back and then regroup. If you think the unit is about to trip, you shut it down on your own. Do not wait for me." I spend the next 15 minutes building a wall across that door. Maintenance brings steel channels and a few lengths of heavy chain. We anchor one end to the stair rail, the other braced against the door handle and frame. It is ugly and not designed, but it spreads force around enough that a few submerged hands should not be able to force it. As we work, the bumps on the other side continue. Slow, almost curious. Every now and then a heavier thud shakes the metal, probably a body catching on the tunnel wall. When the bracing is as good as we can make it, I head back upstairs. The control room feels smaller now. Humid air, alarms still blinking faintly, the frequency needle holding on. Irving looks relieved to see me. He steps aside from the main board. Inner barricade held, he says quickly. Rowan says they pushed the infected back past the gap. They are stacking junk against the hole in the fence as fast as they can. We lost one guard, bitten. They put him down fast outside the wall. No one else hurt bad. I nod. There is no time to mourn right now. That comes later, if at all. Condenser pressure is still climbing, I note. We have maybe an hour at this load before safety valves start doing our job for us. Less if debris keeps piling up. We need a decision, and it will not be a comfortable one. Maggie arrives not long after, soaked and streaked with grime. She leans over the board, scanning the gauges. "How dark do we go if you shut down?" she asks. "Emergency batteries for limited lighting only," I say. "No cameras except the ones on the internal backup circuit. No powered locks. The diesel generator we have left can carry the radio room and a few essential pumps if we nurse it, but nothing on the scale we are using now." "And your tunnel friends?" she asks. "If we shut down, the condenser cools. The outfall water temperature drops," I say. "The current through there decreases too. It may slow them, maybe convince them to drift back toward the river. If the screens see less flow, pressure might ease enough that we can get someone down there later in waders to clear it. If we keep running, the temperature climbs, the flow stays high, and anything with nerves in that tunnel is going to press harder toward us." Maggie stares at the mimic panel for a long moment. Her hand rests on the edge of the frequency meter, fingers tapping once in a steady rhythm. Out the window, thunder rolls again. The storm is not done. "All right," she says finally. "Do it. Shut it all down. Save the plant first. If the strip hates us for the blackout, they can come yell at us later, provided they survive this storm." I nod once and start the shutdown sequence. Fuel off to minimum, then down more. The turbine tone in the hall shifts downward, a smooth slide that my bones recognize even through the concrete. I open breakers in careful order, separating the plant from the darkening grid. Voltage needles drift toward zero. The analog frequency meter relaxes. The unit coasts on inertia for a while, then slows further as I bring in the turning gear. Lights flicker across the plant as the main bus loses power and the emergency system takes over. The hum in the walls fades. So does the subtle vibration in the floor, the one I had tuned out over years. In the sudden relative quiet, we can hear the storm more clearly, and under that, faint other sounds. Scraping at the outer walls, a distant chorus of low moans from the packed fence, and somewhere below, a muffled thud against steel. The hours that follow pass in work. We reconfigure the diesel, check battery levels, walk the plant with flashlights, looking for leaks and damaged conduits. Rowan's people shore up the torn fence section with welded plate and sandbags. They drag some of the bodies away with hooked poles when they can reach them safely, thinning the weight on the weakened posts. It is ugly work, but it slows the collapse. By late afternoon, the storm eases to a steady rain. The pressure gauge repeaters in the control room stop climbing. They hold at a level that says the condenser is no longer pushing against a blocked outlet quite as hard. Maybe some of the debris washed free. Maybe the dead in the tunnel drifted elsewhere. I do not go down to check. Not yet. Night falls earlier than usual under the heavy clouds. The strip is dark, every block a void. No apartment windows glow. No street lamps define the old grid. The only lights are a few scattered fires and the occasional battery lantern someone hangs out of a window to see what moves on the street. From the plant roof, it feels like standing at the edge of a dead ocean, with the faint movement of the infected against the fence the only visible tide. Maggie stands beside me on the parapet, a blanket thrown over her shoulders against the drizzle. "We had a runner from the strip," she says quietly. "He came in just before dusk. Said the blackout scared people, but they understood it was the storm. Buildings were leaking, some roofs collapsed. They lost a few to accidents, and the infected pressed in closer when the light went. But they held. The hospital switched back to their gas generator. H. Sue cursed at us over the radio for 10 minutes straight, then admitted she would probably have made the same choice if she were standing where we are. So we are not the villains of the day, I say, or at least not the only ones. For now, she says. But this cannot be the way forward. We cannot keep toggling life on and off for half a city every time the dead stack higher. We either commit to being a beacon and build walls strong enough to hold forever, or we fade back into the dark and let the pockets fend for themselves. There is a third option, I say slowly. We stop thinking of this plant as the heart of everything. We use it as a tool, short, precise runs, specific days and hours. We tell people ahead of time when power will be available. We build their own small generators and solar rigs up as much as we can so they can bridge the gaps. We stop running at loads that make the ground hum across half the district. Maggie looks out over the dark grid and considers that. Predictable pulses instead of a constant signal, she says. Sharp, controlled bursts, enough to pump water, charge batteries, operate critical equipment. Then silence. The dead may still drift to us, but slower. The fence has time to recover. The walls have time to dry between floods. It will require discipline, I say, from us and them. People will beg for more hours, more comfort. We will tell them no because the cost is written on our walls in bruised metal and broken posts. We will have to live inside those same limits. Short showers, cold nights, dark corridors. She shakes her head with a tired half smile. You and your ration charts. Fine. Draft a schedule. Bring it to the council in the morning. Make sure the first one includes enough power for Etsu to stop cursing at us for a day. We stand there a little longer, listening to the muted sounds of a city that refuses to fully die, even when the lights are out. Somewhere beyond the fence, a distant car alarm starts wailing from some lonely shorted wire, then sputters and dies. An infected stumbles against the outer wall and slides down, leaving a faint dark streak that the rain will wash away by dawn. Inside the plant, emergency lights glow along the corridors, small islands of yellow against the gray. I think about the first day I walked back into this place after the outbreak, keys still on my belt out of habit, double-checking doors that no longer had power to their locks. The halls were quiet then. No moans outside, no packed fence. Just the echo of my own boots and the creak of cooling steel. It felt like a tomb, but a clean one. Empty, waiting. I told myself I could bring it to life on my terms. Now I know better. In this world, every signal draws a response. Every light on, every engine, every broadcast. We pulled the dead in without meaning to, with every megawatt we pushed toward the strip. They do not understand what they are moving toward. Heat, vibration, some echo of the world they lost. It does not matter. Cause and effect do not care about intent. We go back inside when the rain picks up again. I walk the silent turbine hall one more time before grabbing a few hours of rest. Unit 1 sleeps under its casing, metal still warm to the touch but no longer humming. In the lower levels, behind the braced door, the tunnel water sloshes and slowly recedes. Now and then, there is still a faint bump. Reminders that the dead ride every current we create, even the hidden ones. Tomorrow we will open that tunnel again, in daylight, with ropes around our waists and guards at the top of the stairs. We will clear the screens and drag anything with a human face back out to the river and let the current take it. We will rewire the tunnel pumps to local controls immune to surges. We will do 100 small things to make this fortress a little less fragile. We will spin the turbines up again too, when the time is right. Not for comfort, not for constant light, but for survival windows. Carefully measured pulses of civilization through a dead grid. I will stand at the board, watch the needles, feel the building come alive for a few hours at a time, and I will know that every watt carries a price out there in the streets and on our fence. My name is Gabe. I used to be a maintenance technician at a city power plant. Now I am the one who decides when this dead city remembers what electricity feels like. The infected crowd our walls when I do. They press in, drawn by a signal they do not understand. We do not turn the current up all the way anymore. We do not pretend we are rebuilding the old world. We are keeping a smaller one alive inside concrete and steel, one cycle at a time, always listening for the sound of the dead wherever the power goes.